Hey guys, Chris here. In this video, we're going to talk about how and why Norway may actually lose its position as the global EV leader, the leader in the world when it comes to electric car sales and charging infrastructure. But before we do that though, my name is Chris. I have this channel dedicated to testing EVs. I do range tests, I do charging tests, I do reviews, and I buy electric cars to, well, give you guys the ownership experience along the way. So if you're not subscribed to the channel, please hit that subscribe button down below and also sound that notification bell. And guys, before we jump into today's topic, please hit that thumbs up down below. Thank you very much. When it comes to electric car sales, Norway is the 5th largest market in the world. Let me repeat that, the 5th largest market. And that is insane. This small country with a little bit more than 5 million inhabitants is the 5th largest electric car market in the world. And the countries or the markets that are bigger than Norway is France, the UK, Germany, the United States, and China. The smallest of those countries has like 16 times as many inhabitants as Norway. It's insane. And when you look at the amount of EVs sold in percentage compared to all the cars sold in Norway, that number in 2022 is 75%. Let me repeat that, guys. 75% of all new cars sold in Norway are fully electric cars. We're not even counting hybrids. If we count hybrids, it's something like 98%. It's insane. So Norway, yeah, kind of a big deal when it comes to electric cars. And that also means that the charging infrastructure here is amazing. There's no place in the world where you'll find more chargers as densely per population or per size of country as in Norway. There are chargers everywhere. Just 500 meters that way, we're about 15 kilometers out of Oslo in a suburb. There are 350 kilowatt double chargers, meaning that you can charge 6 cars over there, but there are also like 10 AC chargers. That's just on one public charging station. You're going to find chargers in Norway in the most remote places. It is insane. But it's not always been like that. Why is Norway such a leader? Well, I'm going to tell you guys why. Traditionally in Norway, cars have been very expensive. Since the Second World War, there's been in place a taxation system on petrol and diesel cars, making them about 50 to 150% on average more expensive than other European countries. I remember growing up in the 90s and 2000s, a car with 400 horsepower would easily, because of taxes, cost somewhere around 200,000 euros or about 2 million kroners. And you know, what has been taxed in the past has, well, been revised many times in the past few decades. But now in 2022, you pay taxes on the weight of the car, CO2 emissions, NOx gases, and the weight of the car. But for EVs, it's been different because in EVs, we don't even have VAT. So for the past 10, 12, 13 years, there's been no VAT on EVs. So imagine a Volkswagen Passat costing around 50,000 euros or about 500,000 kroners specced out, and maybe about 150,000 kroners or about 15,000 euros of that is taxes. In 2012, the Tesla Model S came out with the 60 model, the smaller battery pack. That car cost 45,000 euros, undercutting a Passat by 50,000 kroners, about 5,000 euros. So, you know, people may think that in Norway we're very conscious about the environment, and we are in many ways. And the way the government works is that there have been incentives, and this is an incentive. But the real driver for the EV adaptation rate here in Norway is they have been cheap. EVs are cheap. Take this car, for example. This is my personal Porsche Taycan 4. This car, specced out with equipment, is about 115,000 euros. If I'd go out and buy a Panamera, even a hybrid, which is also reduced in taxes compared to a diesel or petrol, they don't even make diesel Panameras anymore, it would be about 50,000 euros more expensive spec for spec. And I'm pretty sure that in most European countries, a Panamera isn't 50,000 euros more expensive. That's why you're going to see 20 or 30 times as many Taycan Cross Race Modes as Panamera Sport Race Modes. It's because, relatively speaking, this is a cheap car. For you guys who have been on the channel for a few years now, know that my channel started on my Volvo XC90 D4 diesel. And the reason I got the D4 is because it was so much cheaper than the T8 hybrid at the time, about 6 years ago. But still, that car was a little more than 100,000 euros. Imagine that, guys. I'm pretty sure you could get a nicely spec'd out one in Germany, a D4 for maybe like 55 or 60,000 euros. So that car is almost 100% more expensive than in other markets. But then they revised the taxation system, and then the T8 became the cheapest model suddenly, and I bought a fully decked out one with the exterior styling package, all the bells and whistles for 120,000 euros. And in Norway, that is cheap. You may be thinking 120,000 euros for an XC90 is expensive, but I think maybe in Sweden or in other markets, that car would be close to 100,000 euros. So not 100% more expensive, but maybe like 10, 20, 25% more expensive. But when it comes to EVs, it's the flip side. EVs are cheaper. Take the Polestar 2 that I made a video about a few weeks ago. An entry-level Polestar 2 with front-wheel drive and a small motor is 37,000 euros. You can't even get a Golf for that price here. I think a Golf starts at like 40,000 euros here because of it's a hybrid, the taxation system. Yeah, so that's you guys get a good idea why EVs are so popular. And as more EVs have hit the market, these 50 and 60,000 euro EVs are right in the middle of where most people buy family cars here in Norway. That may be an expensive car in Germany or in France or in Belgium, but here in Norway, that is the sweet spot. And that's why in the past 2, 3, 4 years, I mean, we've gone from 40% adoption rate to like, I think we're going to end at like 80% this year, and that is pretty insane. So that explains why electric cars have been so popular here in Norway the past few years and the past decade. But of course, there have been other incentives in place like free charging in the cities, which is now gone in most cities, free parking in the cities, which is also gone in most cities, no tolls to go into the big cities, which now is a reduced toll, driving in bus lanes, which is only now in between specific hours and not in rush hour unless you have a passenger in most cities. And also charging electric cars has been very cheap, but now it's more expensive because electricity prices have gone up in Norway, but it's still much more cheaper than filling diesel or petrol. So all of these incentives have been in place and are now slowly disappearing. I think the biggest driver is that EVs have been so cheap and continue to be as cheap as they are, because normal families can buy, a decent EV in Norway. It's not a premium, it's actually cheaper than getting a competing product. But last year we had elections, we have a new party in place in government, and one of their campaigns running for election was to add VAT on all cars above 60,000 euros. So below 60,000 euros, still no VAT, but the amount above 60,000 euros, VAT. So today they released, their new budget for 2023, and they've actually gone down to 50,000 euros now, which I think a lot of people are going to react to, because that means, a lot of EVs which were exempt, like Tesla Model Y, Mustang Mach-E with a big battery pack, Volvo XC40, Audi Q4 e-tron, Kia EV6, Hyundai Ioniq 5. All these cars would be exempt from the VAT, but now there's going to be, VAT on those cars if, this is approved, this budget. It may not, but I'm, fearing that maybe they're going to approve this the way. I think there are better ways of doing this, but this means, these EVs that are between 50 and 60,000 euros are going to be more expensive, not by much, but I think what's going to happen is that the manufacturers are going to undercut the prices, so they dip below this, 500,000 kroner or 50,000 euro line, meaning that the cars are just going to be cheaper and no VAT to the government. And I'm all about paying VAT. I've grown up in this country. I've grown up in Bergen, the first city in Europe to have toll roads. So, we have to, fund society some way, and we do that by taxes, by VATs. I'm totally cool with that. I think that's, the normal European mentality that everything has to be funded. But I think this way of doing it is not necessarily the best way, because you're going to, create this artificial market now where everybody's going to want to buy EVs before the 1st of January 2023. So you have maybe a lot of families thinking that we're going to get an EV next year or the year after. They're waiting for a car. A lot of people are going to probably, buy an EV now, meaning that they're going to sell a lot of EVs now, no VAT, so the government aren't going to make any money. And then next year, at least for probably the first few months, maybe the first 6 months, maybe for the first few years, we're going to see a dip in new car sales. Take something like, I don't know, an Audi e-tron, the big one, or a BMW iX, which have been very popular family cars. Again, in Norway, it's not a cheap car, but a car that a lot of families, who earlier maybe bought X5 hybrids, XC90 hybrids, Q7 hybrids, GLE hybrids, have now transitioned into an electric car because there's been an incentive. You're going to take a hit on range, you're maybe going to get a smaller car, but you're going to get it cheaper. It's going to be cheaper to charge. It's going to be cheaper to drive around, and you're driving an EV, so you can have a better conscience, especially here in Norway, where 98% of all electricity is made by renewable energy, hydroelectric, and stuff like that. But if those cars are going to go up in price by 10 or 15,000 euros, the spec one out, the price up to a hybrid version, the gap isn't going to be as big as it was. And I'm suspecting that a lot of people who maybe earlier bought spec'd out Tiguan's or Skoda Kodiaqs have now been able to stretch out and get these more expensive EVs, because when you consider fuel prices and all of that, it's going to be the same monthly cost getting an EV. But those cars being more expensive is going to put them out of reach for a lot of people. So I'm not for creating this VAT above this certain point in price. And I'm not talking about myself. I have an EV. I've ordered a new Taycan 4S that I'm going to get delivered before New Year's, because I was expecting that there was going to be rolled out VAT on cars after New Year's. So for myself, I really don't care, even though this car would cost 160,000 euros, about 16,000 euros more. The car I'm going to have ordered would be about 20,000 euros more, which is, it's not the coolest thing, but, it's going back into the budget and back into society and doing good. So, I mean, I can afford it. I'm not, sorry about myself, but I'm thinking about all of these EVs that are going to be sold now, people getting into EVs that they maybe don't want to get because they can't wait for, I don't know, the new XC90 electric or other big electric cars. In Norway, we use large SUVs. A lot of people have cabins in the mountain, and a lot of people, are from the west coast and live on the east coast, and opposite, to go, back and forth several times in the year to visit family and stuff. So I made a video about this before. I think it would be better to, maybe go 5% VAT now and then just up it up 5% each year, because I don't think 5% is enough of a price hop that people would just rush and get an EV now instead of waiting for next year. Because I think a lot of that would be also, a lot of the manufacturers would, cut their prices to compensate a little bit for that. We've seen this before when, they introduced a different taxation system in 2008, when a lot of people just bought these large SUVs, Range Rovers and stuff like that, because like the first of January 2008, cars were going to be 20 and 30,000 euros more expensive. What happened is that a lot of cars got registered in 2007, and then for the following years, they basically sold nothing. So, I mean, there is data in Norway for doing things this way, or maybe they should just do 5% above, up until 500,000, and then 10% for the next 500,000, and just up it up like that. I don't mind paying VAT, and I don't mind giving back into society. We have to fund this country somehow, but I don't think this way to do it is the best way. So guys, let me know what you think down below, because how we may lose the position is that more people who have been persuaded into EVs from hybrids may just go and buy hybrid instead next year, if the hybrid is about the same price or not much more expensive. Me myself, as I said in a previous video, I'm looking to get the Range Rover, the new one, when it comes to an electric car in 2024. But I've spec'd out a hybrid now, and if the electric version isn't much cheaper, I don't know, maybe there isn't the same incentive as getting, if I'm going to take a hit on range, and if you can still get a lot of range with that car. I don't know. I'm kind of doubling back a little bit, because why would I get the EV if it's not cheaper in Norway? And I know a lot of places around the world it's opposite, so it's just from my perspective. But guys, let me know what you think down below. Will you, if you live in Norway, will you now get an EV? this year instead of next year, because the EV you want to get, maybe something like BMW iX, will become like 10,000 euros more expensive? I'm curious to know. So guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up down below. And for more car content, as always, please subscribe. See you guys later, and goodbye.